It's James with Net News Ledger. Joining us by phone is Sol Mamakwa, who is the New Democratic Party critic for Indigenous issues. Sol, welcome to Net News Ledger.
Hi, James. Good to talk to you again.
We have a lot of things going on. Now, don't talk too fast. It sounds like you've got the police chasing you.
Yes, a lot's happening here. I'm still down in Toronto, so there's a lot of things happening here, with ambulance and fire trucks, and so, yeah.
It's a lot different than the north. A couple of issues that are starting to surface across what I'll call Western Canada and Northern Canada. First of all, is the level of respect during COVID-19 for traditional Indigenous ceremonies and practices, especially with, say, childbirth issues in the hospital. What should be done by Ontario on this issue, in your opinion?
I know this Ford government has had these blanket policies on family visitations that, show that they pretty much do not listen to Ontarians, advocates, staff, and of course experts. So, and I think even though, as a party, as a Ontario New Democratic Party, we completely support, the public health measures that keep Ontarians safe and, of course, protected from further spread of COVID-19 in our communities and our facilities and our institutions. Again, particularly in acute settings such as the hospital, and, that are prone to, these type of disease outbreaks. But I think, for me, when we talk about, births for our people, Indigenous people, First Nations people, we have to understand, that most Indigenous families have, we all have an expectation of being present to welcome, our family members, and that's our culture, that's our tradition, and it needs to be, it needs to be accommodated by these agencies, institutions such as the hospital, and in their policies, and sometimes it does not happen. What you're exactly talking about, so it certainly. One of the things too is this government should have worked with Indigenous community healthcare leaders to develop a plan of considering, some considered Indigenous birthing ceremonies, and and provide the resources and the training to help family members safely participate. And what you're talking about, it's not happening. It's just a closed door, and so I think respect of our identity, respect of our culture and our ceremonies. We have to understand that that's the way these institutions function. And sometimes, when we talk about systemic racism, and it's out in the open, and sometimes that we just need to have these discussions, in a very candid manner. So, and I think when we talk about safety in the hospital, safety in those processes, safety in those institutions, I'm talking about providing PPE like masks and gowns, and training of how to use the PPE safely, and then especially, I think especially for the north, we are unique in the north, whether it's Thunder Bay, whether it's Timmins, whether it's the Solar, we need to be able to fund these northern hospitals for the need for extra cleaning and staffing to make sure that these cultural ceremonies go ahead in the safest way possible.
Now, we've also over the last couple of days, you've been talking about issues with children and youth services, and that seems to be another area that has fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, it's it seems it seems that these issues that we are raising, and we're trying to understand, and why this is happening, and but it just keeps on happening, and I think it is time that we start to call out that First Nations people as Indigenous people. Not only that, but if you even if you're not Indigenous, you start to kind of be allies and speaking out on the constitution of our people, because we're talking about we were talking about birth rate, at birth, it's already starting, and the measures of the approaches, the colonial system that's in place for us, and sometimes the identity and the culture is not recognized. So it continues to happen, and I think when we talk about children and care, and that's one of the things I've been really trying to bring out the issue, and access to type of information, and and it's and it's a really tough issue that we need to talk about. And I think trying to get the data from the communities, and I just got a note not too long ago, probably about about an hour ago, and whereby over the last 7 years, as of January the 20th, the question I had asked about that, sharing data, and over 155 Indigenous kids died under that system. So I think that's kind of that's the issue we're talking about. It's just when we talk about births, and even before you're born, these systems, these colonial systems that have an impact on the lives of our people, and there's this child welfare system that I'm talking about too, and it's just it's another issue, and there's a lot of things that are happening right now, and I know especially with this COVID-19 pandemic, and certainly I know the communities up in the flying communities. Not only that, even in my writing, the municipalities they're doing a great job in isolating these issues. The positive cases that have been happening, and not only that, the communities and the flying community, the leadership, they're taking this very seriously, whereby they have these travel restrictions, and but it has an impact on other services that you need to provide, whether it's mental health, whether it's addiction issues, and or people that have chronic diseases. And we're so focused on the service. So, and I think that's something that's happening, and I know, especially with the airlines that are suffering as well. And one of my colleagues had a question on the Minister of Transportation on the approaches of how the service, the airline service has gone down, the business has gone down. The amount of traffic from the north and communities is 70% down, and these First Nations, whether it's partnerships that are happening with airlines, they're suffering, and pretty much the provincial government said you got to talk to the feds, and that's not right. And everybody down in Toronto, or and even in Thunder Bay, we have access to these roads, but
yes,
it's people don't understand. Airports are a lifeline to our communities, and they don't see it that way, and they're not able to. They need to provide that. Whether it's a program, whether it's some resourcing to be able to sustain, the airlines that travel. That airports are highways for our communities, and we have to understand that, and it's not happening. So, and I think we need, that airport is a lifeline to the outside, to have access to education, access to health, access to economic development, access to different services. So that's where all the fuel, or the cargo, food, that's where everything comes from. So I think they don't recognize that. So that's one of the things that that's really has an impact on it. And certainly one of the things I've noticed seems to be a lot of because of that, limited access to, because we're so focused on COVID. There's a lot of people dying in our communities. Whether it's youth, whether it's people with mental health issues, there's suicides, there's and young people dying with different, whether it's addiction issues. So that's something that we're really pushing for, to make sure that there's equity and equality on that, and the proper resourcing for for our communities in the north, and and that's really one of the things that's kind of difficult for me, I guess, is because like some of these some of these issues, because I'm responsible, I'm in the provincial legislature, and sometimes when I ask questions that pertain to on-reserve issues, which is they tell me that's a federal responsibility. They play that jurisdictional ambiguity game with me, and they play the jurisdictional ping pong on the lives of the people. Not only that, the health of the people that are up there not to provide that service because of that jurisdictional ambiguity, and people pay, and our people pay in full, with their health,
and sometimes pay with their lives.
Exactly, and and I think that's we see it, like when we talk about 15-year-old girl dying by suicide, that's a systemic issue, and that's when they play that jurisdictional ping pong, it's an outright racism on the part of this government. So that's something that those are the discussions we need to have, and I think one of the issues that we're talking about too here is, of course, the Kenora jail. Not only that, but the Thunder Bay jail.
Well, the Thunder Bay jail, I don't think you could call it jail. I think it's more of a medieval dungeon.
You're very correct on it. Like I've seen the jail. I've been there, and when I was I think last year around April of 2019, I had an opportunity to visit with one of my colleagues from Thunder Bay, and I talked to people. I've seen it, and in a 4x8 jail, and cell, and there's 2 bunk beds, and there's 6 people there.
Yeah,
and the 5th and the 6th person were under the bunk beds, and that's how full it was, and it's over capacity, and I'm sure there's and the services that are provided there, and even it's not the best conditions for our people, because there's such a high rate of Indigenous people. There's a prevalence pretty high, and not only that, it's it's not a safe place, and the conditions, they're just not safe. Not only that, it's the workers too, right? It's not a safe facility, and I think I know this government has really announced that they're going to fund and build the jail as well. But I think obviously over the last couple months, things come. Sometimes when you're fighting for things for Indigenous people, especially from the north, and sometimes things come very closer to home, and I had to deal with the death of my nephew Kevin on it, and it's when you're trying to fight, but it's still it's still difficult for my brother, and and his family, but I think because of the condition of that jail, I don't think and talking to different people, and talking to people that have reached out to me from across the Ontario, across Canada, on what's happening, and it's not a safe place, and that's why I asked that Solicitor General to shut down the jail, and that having that jail is not the answer, and I think some type of mechanism, some type of whether it's some type of healing lodge, and these are some of the things that need to happen, and we have to have dialogue on that. It's just to have a 300, 400 bed facility jail, it's not going to help. We have to go upstream on why how they got there, and it's
yes.
And I think when we talk about the justice system, whether it's the police system, the court system, even the correctional system, and that system there it's it's not a justice system. It's in the justice system
It's a legal
First
system.
Nations. Yeah. So it's a really, and it's a systemic issue. And like I've said it a lot of times, whereby we have to we have to understand it from our perspective. Like these are colonial systems. These were never systems that we built, and we have to break down those structures and reinvent them in a way whereby we have a seat at the table and how to certainly make change in our communities. And sometimes they need just. Sometimes our people just like people that are in jail, like they just need to find themselves again, whether it's by going back to the land, and like whether it's going, finding your identity, your language, your culture, the teachings that we have had for that sustain us, over thousands of years. So I'm not saying go back to the bush, but it's just, like we have, like the system, the colonial system that's there, and it's just working exactly the way it's designed to, which is to take away the rights of our people, to take away the rights of our people to the lands and resources that are up there, and that's what it is, and and that's what we, that's what we're in store with, and it's going to take a number of generations to get back to where we need to be, and to be, a good society, to be,
one of the issues in the north, of course, and we had some pretty close, call it business experience a couple of weeks ago on July the 4th. Net News Ledger partnered up with North Star Air, and we broadcast a live stream bingo, and we had 18,000 people tune in to the bingo. And we had 18,000 people watching the video on YouTube, and I bet you we almost capped out the internet in a whole bunch of communities because we've kept having announcements about improving the internet in the north. And you talk about a vital lifeline and highway of information, even for schools right now, they're talking about online learning, but in the north, there isn't enough bandwidth to do it.
Certainly, I know, again, we had made some statements with, the Minister of Education with respect to the options of the three options that he provided to the provincial school boards with respect to, going back to school in September. And I know that's one of the things that we had then was with respect to access to reliable internet in our communities. And I know there are some communities that, in my writing that don't even have access to, fiber in the community. So, and I think that's, that's the work that we need to do with both levels of government. And I know the province, this government had re-announced a few months ago with respect to Kiiwetinoong region, but I'm not sure how far along that project is. And I know they announced, it was a re-announcement pretty much, but yeah, it's we need to do more work on it. We need to do more advocacy, and that's one of the things that, like for myself, being from the north and coming down here to try to, get these people to understand what I mean by these people with my colleagues. There's 134 of us that are sitting here. They don't have an idea on who we are. They don't have an idea of where we come from. And then not only that, but how our communities are, and they don't understand that. And example is, why is there a 26-year boil advisory in Neskantaga?
Yes.
They don't understand that, and it's just and that's again and then it's almost like have to tell these stories and try to get them to understand. And I know the premier is on a tour all across Ontario, and I didn't get to personally invite him, but I.
So, would you invite the premier now, maybe on Net News Ledger? Because I know that we get watched. Where would you want the premier to go if he was on his tour and going into the north? Where would you
I
take
think I would I know last year we had he had promised me that he would go to a flying community or a driving community in my riding. But and one of the things is I think I would suggest for me along with the leadership at Neskantaga, I would invite him to Neskantaga just to see the water system and just to see how of who we are. Like our culture and we are strong people. We are and that's where I would invite him. And if he's listening, that's where I would invite him. And it should be he should come to Neskantaga and come and see the water system and come and see where they get their water now. I've seen it. I've seen that small building where they get their reverse osmosis system.
And last time I was there was I think she was about 70 or 80 years old, and she was carrying 2 great big jugs of water. She came down, and she was taking water home. And luckily, there was enough young people there that they jumped in and, no, you're not carrying those, Grandma. Gookum, you're not going to carry those. We're carrying them. But it reminded me of my grandmother, who, until her late 70s, was still wanting to milk cows on the farm. It's a different world in the north. And the last trip that I was in the community, the internet is so slow. One of the other reporters, we were running late, and he wanted to file his story. It took an hour to upload a Word document and 2 pictures. And that is, in Toronto to that would be impossible. The same thing if there was a water main break at Queen's Park and there was no water, it would be fixed within the day. But in the north, it seems to 25 years on boil water. That's just inconceivable for most people.
Yeah, and that's a truth-telling story that I have to tell. And then I'm not sure. Even me, sometimes whatever's happening in our community, even though I'm from the north, sometimes it takes me to actually visit the community to understand it. And it's and then that's just because I'm from the communities too. And then you start to normalize things. That's just the way things are. That's just the way things are. And then sometimes it takes me to look at things from a different, angle, different lens, and to understand that this is not, this is Ontario, and it's. So I think that's that's the direction that we need to go, and I know. I mean, I'm an MPP, and but also I'm from the north, and he is he's our premier, and he said but I think right now for me it's I don't think that being partisan, I think the state of some of the stuff that we talk about is access to clean drinking water is a non-partisan issue.
Yes.
And it's a human rights issue, and that's the way we have to frame it, and that's the way he has to look at it. But I don't know. He's too busy campaigning in different areas right now. So.
Well, it's pretty inconceivable that you think that somebody could be a quarter of a century, 25 years old, and have never been able to have a glass of water from the tap. They have to go get it. They have to store it in a jug. They have to put it in the fridge. The things we take for granted that in the north can be hard to figure out why it's taking so long.
Yeah, and I think that's some of the things that we need to kind of, whether if there's a person sitting in Mississauga in her living room, they don't understand this, and that's the truth-telling stories that we need to continue to tell, because it's it's happening in the backyard of Ontario, it's happening in the backyard of Canada, and we need to be able to kind of move forward and how do we come about making change in our communities. And I think that it's not just the government that need to do that change, but we have to make change from within the community as well, and that's very important. How do we get the communities to rise up and address these issues as well?
Well, I think, Saul, from what we've talked about today, you've done an open invitation to the Premier. to get up to the north, get into a community, probably spend more than just a fly in, fly out in a day. Get a couple of days, get out, maybe get him fishing, get him, out on the land a little bit too, and get an appreciation for all of this.
Yes, certainly. I know that's something like that's again, it's an open invitation. And not just to be there for a couple of hours, but actually talk to people, talk to others, talk to we are people too. And then and I think that's something that really and then it will be a non-partisan trip, and I think it's very important. And I think no matter whether you're in KI, whether you're in Sunny Lake, whether you're in Kingfisher, whether you're in Neskantaga, he's our premier too.
Yes.
And so we have to, and then he has to understand that just because I'm an NDP member doesn't mean I don't. We have to represent people of Kiiwetinoong.
Any message for the riding?
Message for the Kiiwetinoong, the great communities of Kiiwetinoong. I think certainly. I know we're Ontario is opening up with the opening up from the COVID and stage 2, stage 3 in different areas, and I know our communities are still very. Some of our communities are very have these travel restrictions, but I think our communities are doing a good job in doing that, and I wish everybody to be safe. I wish everybody to be, things will, we will get through this together. We will continue to work together on these issues, and I think we're at a time where there's no playbook for this on how we're going to do this. So, but I think this is a learning process, and we have to, ensure that we have these proper resources, proper PPEs in our communities as well as proper planning, and I think that we'll get through it.
Saul Miigwech, thank you very much for taking the time tonight.
Okay, thanks for calling. Have a good day.
Okay, watch out. Stay informed and stay up to date. Hit subscribe, hit like, share this with a friend. Make sure you hit the little bell so you get notified the next time that we have a video up. Thanks for tuning in to Net News Ledger.